market, which we didn't have those tools, 3, 4 years ago. So we're talking here the isoleucine that was registered in Canada only 2 years ago. So that was quite helpful in reducing the protein in the nursery diet. And also valine, that was probably 4, 5, 6 years ago. And so these amino acids, synthetic amino acids, have been quite helpful in reducing the protein in your nursery diet. So just on that, like in swine nutrition, we don't talk about crude protein, and it's not necessarily like sometimes people compare our rations. You seem lower on crude protein, but it has nothing to do. Like what's important in swine nutrition is the quality of digestibility of the protein. So we're not talking about crude protein anymore. So it's not necessarily what I want to say about that is you can get similar performance if you're with a different amount of crude protein. It's all about how well balanced it is. So, and in the case of piglets early on, the less protein you need the least possible. So it's okay to have a slower growth, prepare the piglets for the later stage. Good. So just a demonstration here on our latest trial on zinc oxide. We took it out to the level that we need to be in a year from now, and as you can see, we've accomplished better performance actually without the zinc oxide, and that has to do again with the binding capacity of the zinc oxide, which can actually be negative on performance. So if anything, we're more than ready for this new law that's coming, and we've already reduced to these levels, knowing that it's actually negative now in our program to have these high levels of zinc oxide. The advantage of reducing the zinc in the ration is now the piglet can digest the other comparable minerals that compete in the absorption. So if there's less zinc, it'll give more room for the absorption of copper and iron. But in this case, copper is a good opportunity for us to increase copper because it's not competing with the zinc. And now CFIA allowed us to double the amount of copper that we can put into our rations. And so on that, when we do increase copper to 225 ppm, we saw a significant increase in the end weight, and so basically on growth, and so the payback was quite significant. And copper sulfate can be a source that can be used. It doesn't need to be through TBCC, like copper chloride, which is a more expensive source. But be careful adding copper sulfate at these levels into your micro, because it's high levels, and so it can interact with your vitamins. So ideally, if you can take it out of the micro and put it on farm or separately, so it doesn't react with the vitamin in the micro, that's ideal. If it's not possible, then that's where you can use TBCC and copper chloride. So good payback on that. On the 1 dose of iron, injectable iron versus 2 on piglets, so it's been talked previously today, but so the idea is to make sure that we don't have those anemic piglets. So on a 1 dose injectable iron, we saw that 14% of the piglets were still considered anemic, versus if we gave 2 doses of injectable iron, we brought it down to 1.2% of anemic piglets. And so this is quite beneficial on the finisher and weight. So these are trials that take lots of time to do, because we're injecting into the ferrium, and then we need to measure the impact at the end of the finisher. And so we did see a significant impact on the end weight at 1.62 kg. So it's like how can we say, it's a no-brainer, because injectable iron is quite cheap, and we know that 1.62 kg is a good extra revenue. So there's a payback of 2.9 on fixed time and 1.25 on a fixed weight basis. So quite significant impact on the revenue. Now on enzymes, so there's different type of enzymes on the market. The phytase being the most popular and the one that's commonly used. That's the one that releases the phosphorus from the phytate. But xylanase or protease are those that are less commonly used. We have lots of data now that's showing that xylanase type NSP enzyme are beneficial as a significant to increase the energy release from beta-mannan or carbohydrates that are difficulty that are not well digested by pigs. And so by adding those kind of enzymes, we saw if we attributed 50 kcal, which is 3% of a ration basically in energy, we saw no difference in feed efficiency. So what I mean by that is we considered already that energy to be released, and it was shown to be true because feed efficiency was similar between the two rations. So the enzyme successfully released that 50 kcal of energy, and so we saw the positive impact of that. And so using that enzyme into the ration, was able to give 26 cents per pig return. So enzyme is quite easy. Again, you can ask your nutritionist if they have the research, on which enzyme to use. They can add it directly in the microbe, so it's not something you'll have to think about. So it's easy to put in place. Now, if you're not already using it, we do recommend using acetaminophen in nursery. So we don't recommend using rations without any meds. So if you don't have anything, we do recommend using acetaminophen. So these are the brands would be Cox-Attack, Sacox, Biocox. And so they every time we give them put them on trial, they always give benefits on growth and feed efficiency. So here, margin over cost of 75 cents per pig by using acetaminophen in the 2 last phase. So from 12 kg to 30 kg in nursery, good payback of using that instead of having nothing. So again, just want to be sure, so if you're already using a different kind of med, let's say a fluor or such, you probably won't see a benefit of putting this on top, but if you have nothing, this can help on your feed efficiency and growth. Here are trials, we're always trying to follow the genetics improving all the time quite fast, so as a nutritionist, we need to make sure that we're feeding them, that we're following the improvement that they're doing that we're following on our nutrition and recommendation. So we're always trying to see if we're on par on the lysine that we give to those pigs. So we did see that going higher on protein, which is lysine in this case, the indicator, we saw improvement on feed efficiency. It did cost more to feed those piglets more protein. So there wasn't a huge payback, but again, I prefer, even though there's just a small payback, I prefer going with higher protein rations at the end of nursery, because we did see that at reduction in ear necrosis incidence at the end of nurseries with higher protein rations. So to me, it's not a bigger cost necessarily, but a higher insurance in those kind of behavior that we sometimes see when we're a bit crowded or such at the end of nursery. Jumping to sows. So this data comes from Demeter, Ontario. So they did this last summer, and since it's been taking some traction, lots of people talking about it, and we're doing more trials on it. So what's going on is that we found that sows late gestation are anemic. And so what they did is they gave 16 ml 1 week or around that range, 1 week or 2 weeks before farrowing. And they, so But first, let me go back a bit here. So they found that more than, roughly 60% of sows were anemic prior to farrowing. And when they compared, they had, those anemic sows are usually skinnier a bit, and they have more stillborns and more chance of being removed from the herd, okay? So, and sows that are anemic are usually the older ones. So they had more incidence with the older sows. So what they did is they did 16 ml total injection of iron. In this case, they did 48 hours pre-farrow. You can't inject 16 ml in one injection site, so they did it in two, both sides of the hip in this case. And they measured horn, farrowing lengths, and such. And what they found is quite significant, where they were able to reduce significantly the stillborns and especially the duration of farrowing. So comment I get often from especially high-performing sow herds, it's taking forever for sows to farrow. And so it does make sense in this case that maybe they're lacking something, because iron, if you're anemic, you have less oxygen, muscle contraction strength and stuff like that. So it all makes sense. And so that's why this kind of intervention is taking traction, because it all makes sense. It's just we don't have many trials done yet to be able to do a broad recommendation, but this is something we're definitely going to run more trial on. But again, there's not a huge investment, so if you are seeing it taking lots of time for your sows to farrow, lots of time to recover, this is something you could talk with your nutritionist, no more your vet about, and see if it could be applicable to your farm. Cost of the treatment, $2, payback of $10 per sow, so return of 5 to 1. Good oxytocin. So these were sows that were bred with post-cervical insemination. So the idea is to give oxytocin perivulva during the breeding process, and we saw a reduction, an improvement, in farrowing rate by 1%. So it's not a huge amount, but every time we give it a try, and we try to make sure we get a response all the time, we always see that 1% being quite consistent, and so we now recommend to use oxytocin when we're PCAI, post-cervical insemination. So the cost, again, is not huge. So an improvement of this scale brings a payback of $19 per sow. So again, this is a no-brainer to us now in terms of recommendation during the breeding. One comment I get from boar studs too is they don't really like us giving the oxytocin into the bottle, because we did try giving the oxytocin in the semen bottle prior to breeding versus perivulva. We saw no difference between both techniques, but boar studs definitely have a preference for us to do perivulva, because we're not interacting with the quality of their product, which all makes sense. And so we recommend the perivulva for that matter. Pre-farrow top dress. So basically, this is a product that allows us to give different strategies to help the sow farrow, and again, reduce the stillborns. So in this kind of product, you would have, laxatives, some energy, calcium-related product, and so all of that it's hard to do within a ration, but if we're giving through a top dress, it allows us to put it in practice these strategies. So it's like 80 grams that we scoop to each sow at least 5 days on a daily basis for 5 days prior to farrowing, and the results are always consistent, where we're able to reduce stillborns by like 1.5% roughly. And so again, there, like, we can increase by 0.6 number of pigs per sow per year by reducing those stillborns. So if you are seeing stillborns in the 6 to 7 range, percent range, then you can expect a good reduction. If you're already in the 3-4% because you have a night shift and you're just leaving aggressively, then maybe less room to show this kind of improvement. But if you're in the 6-7% range, this is a product we would recommend using. The response is greater of this pre-farrow product on the older sows. So this will be interesting because when we put in interaction that injecting sows with the iron versus the response of this product, like maybe we'll see less response if we are injecting sows with iron. So that's why research is never ending, because as we find something, we need to go back to make sure it still responds. So it'll be interesting to see if we can still see the response of this product once we start giving the injectable iron to the sows. Finisher pigs. Again, earlier talked, nursery pig had a good response of using enzymes. We saw the same idea in finisher where using enzymes help release energy. The carbohydrates are not digestible by even a finisher pig. The response was quite good, where we saw an equivalent of saving per pig of $1.25 to $2.2 per pig, depending on the energy price. And as you know, right now energy price is higher because the oil is dragging vegetable oil price higher. So there is quite a good benefit of using enzyme. And as we go through summer, it's even more important to increase the energy in your finisher ration. So be sure to talk to your nutritionist about using enzymes, especially for summertime in finisher and nursery pigs. Rye, the grain rye is something that is used, but some producers are still afraid to use rye because of the ergot contamination, and maybe they feel like the pig will have because of the taste, or old sauce before hybrid rye came to the market, it wasn't as used. But we ran some trials on understanding if hybrid rye what the impact and how much we could put in finisher pig without compromising performance. And so we went all the way to 50% of the ration being rye, and the result was quite fun, where we saw that we could go as high as 50% of the ration without really slowing down the pig. We did see a slight reduction in performance, but do understand that 50% is we'll never need to go that high. But we know that if we need to, we can without really affecting the performance much. And so that was a good finding for us. But again, we never need to go really higher than 7 to 10%. There's not enough on the market anyway to justify going to those levels, but it was good to know. A bit on IVP, so iodine value, because not everybody knows, but High Life, requires this, so it's good to know why we're formulating based on iodine value. So iodine value is an indicator that we have in the feed where we can predict the fat softness. And so when you're on a Japan market or selling based on the meat quality, the fat hardness or softness needs to be well understood, because it has a significant impact on the product that the slaughter plant will have to sell. Because obviously if you have a floppy belly, like a 105 millimeter bacon there, you won't be able to get on many markets. And at the opposite, if you have a really hard one, like the one at the end, you'll have a similar problem. So yeah, to get a belly that hard, you need saturated fat. So I do have customers using like 60% of yogurt, like he's close to Montreal, so he's getting a bunch of disqualified yogurt from Montreal. So we are getting complaints from honey male that are belly and stuff like that, but you know, they're not paying based on an IVP, so we can continue doing it. But ideally, you know, if you want to be cautious, we got to be in that middle range.